So all eyes are on the big power-packed Quad meeting that is currently underway, laying a long-term strategic groundwork to further solidify cooperation for a free, open and inclusive Indo Pacific, and of course delving into the implications of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. These are expected to be the central focus of the second in-person summit of the Quad leaders in Tokyo.
And Madhav is joining us live from Tokyo, getting us all of the updates, because we have been hearing the statements that have been delivered by the top leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and also Japan and the US drawing a red line for China, saying that they will not allow Ukraine repeat in the Indo-Pacific region.
Your Excellencies, Pradhanmantri Kishida, प्रधानमंत्री एंथनी अल्बनीजी और राष्ट्रपति बाइडेन। प्रधानमंत्री किशिदा, आपके शानदार आतिथ्य के लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आज टोक्यो में मित्रों के बीच होना मेरे लिए बहुत खुशी की बात है। मैं सबसे पहले प्रधानमंत्री एंथनी अल्बनीजी चुनावों में विजय के लिए आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई, बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। शपथ लेने के 24 घंटे के बाद ही आपका हमारे बीच होना क्वाड मित्रता की ताकत और इसके प्रति आपकी प्रतिबद्धता को दिखाता है। एक्सेलेंसीज, इतने कम समय में क्वाड समूह ने विश्व पटल पर एक महत्वपूर्ण स्थान बना लिया है। आज क्वाड का स्कोप व्यापक हो गया है और स्वरूप प्रभावी हो गया है। हमारा आपसी विश्वास, हमारा डिटर्मिनेशन लोकतांत्रिक शक्तियों को नई ऊर्जा और उत्साह दे रहा है। क्वाड के स्तर पर हमारे आपसी सहयोग से एक फ्री, ओपन और इंक्लूसिव इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र को प्रोत्साहन मिल रहा है।
Quad leaders met for the first time just over 1 year ago. It seems longer, but to date our partnership is central to achieving our goals and critical for the foundation of our continuing cooperation, in my view. We already accomplished a great deal. As was referenced earlier, cooperating on COVID-19 response and health security, more to do, to state the obvious. Partnering on 5G and technology supply chains, technology standard setting, and launching our Quad Fellowship Program, which I think is going to make a difference, which we talked about earlier. At the same time, we're navigating a dark hour in our shared history. The Russian brutal and unprovoked war against Ukraine has triggered a humanitarian catastrophe, and innocent civilians have killed in the streets, and millions of refugees are internally displaced as well as exiled. And this is more than just a European issue. It's a global issue. The fact is that if you turn on the television and you'll see what Russia's doing now, it appears to me that Putin is just trying to extinguish a culture.
It is an honour that this is my first act as Prime Minister to attend this important Quad leaders meeting here in Japan. And as we gather today, I acknowledge all that the Quad has achieved. Standing together for a free, open and resilient Indo-Pacific region, and working together to tackle the biggest challenges of our time, including climate change and the security of our region. My government is committed to working with your countries, and we are committed to the Quad. The new Australian government priorities align with the Quad agenda, taking action on climate change and building a stronger and more resilient Indo-Pacific region through better economic security, better cyber security, better energy security and better environmental and health security.
All right, guests joining us on the broadcast, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni as well as Suresh Kumar Goel. But before that, let's take a word from Tokyo. Our colleague Madhav is there at the spot. Madhav, the world's eyes are on the Quad meeting. Yesterday, the focus was on Prime Minister Modi's interaction with the Indian diaspora. Today, it's all about the Quad meeting and a clear message that there is a new world order.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, over and above the statements that have come in, the opening statements of the four leaders are in. Now, that is as far as the Quad meeting is concerned. As per the schedule, the meeting would have just ended and they would be preparing to head out for lunch hosted by the Japanese Prime Minister at his residence in a few moments from now. And after that, we also, of course, know about how there would be a bilateral meeting with between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi that is scheduled to take place at around 2:30, that is Japanese time, which is around 11 o'clock India time. So in a short while from now, that bilateral meeting also expected to take place, following which there will be a bilateral with the Australian Prime Minister and later with the Japanese Prime Minister. But what is very, very important is that the one phrase which is repeatedly being cited by all of the leaders is a free, open and inclusive Indo Pacific. Now, the very word and the very terminology that we're talking about is a direct attack in a sense on China, and even the entire arrangements or the entire Quad discussions, apart from, of course, discussing the Ukraine war, the comments that were made there by President Biden. Over and above that, it is focused on how to counter and contain China. Now, one of the aspects of this will be trade, areas such as telecom, where the countries can work together, and also, of course, the future, which includes maritime agreements. Remember, there's a vast swath of maritime area which starts from the Indian Ocean, goes through the Southeast Asian area, and then on to the Pacific Islands. This entire stretch is being perceived as an area where the Quad countries can work together to ensure that there is maritime surveillance of these areas, as well as any kind of dark shipping activities that are carried out can also be checked. And this is very important because China has been very aggressive on the maritime front over the past several years. We have seen how they have not just illegally captured, or the allegation against China is that it's illegally captured several areas, tried to illegally expand them as well in a bid to spread its influence and power in the various high seas. So that's going to be a very important area as well, is what we understand that the Quad leaders will be discussing.
All right, Madhav, request you to stay on with us. Going quickly to our panel for an expert point of view. Lieutenant General Kulkarni, sir, good morning. Can India really rely on the US, Japan and Australia to really make up for any gaps in its defense priorities if they really want to wean India away from Russia, sir?
You know, there is no denying the fact that Quad, the total reliance has to be for security cooperation. Much that people might criticize calling it the Asian NATO or whatever it is. But the fact remains, if there is cooperation amongst the countries which almost constitute 40% of the GDP, 50% of the world population, much that we might differ on Russia, India might have a neutrality, total neutrality on Russia and what's going on in Ukraine. But India's interests are quite clear. And I think they are being accepted, that India's interests have to be protected. India just cannot go totally against our own because national interests come first. Having said that, whatever it be, our security concerns have to be addressed. China is a threat. There is no denying the fact. And let's not mince words. China is doing what it is doing. It has done what it has done in the South China Sea. It is doing what it is doing in international fishing. It is totally piracy. The way it is going about fishing, with almost 17,000 vessels all across the Indo Pacific region, just doing fishing and sophisticated piracy. The way the things are going, the piracy that it does, not piracy from that point of view, but the fishing piracy, using all kinds of flags, all kinds of things to be done under different jurisdictions. China is capable, it's doing it. We have to protect ourselves. And Quad gives us an opportunity to be able to interact. After all, the world's four biggest democracies are together. And not just that, it also allows us in trade, in infrastructure, in, like what we said about COVID vaccines, other aspects of technology transfer, all of it that we learn. When we interact, interoperability. Indian Ocean is a vast region. We are there. We are central in the Indian Ocean region. We do not have much of our, the east part of the Malacca Strait would have a little difficulty. But at least we should be able to cooperate. there should be a lot of reliance, and India should step out and be able to say, yes, we are, and it is an alliance not from the point necessarily of only trade and economics and infrastructure, but also security alliance, because that is what matters to us, because China is an expansionism. China is doing what it is doing. And Russia is an old strategic partner of India. So we have to maintain that balance with Russia, and we also have to ensure that there's enough deterrence against China.
Yeah.
So I feel Quad is a very essential
Ambassador
part.
Suresh Kumar, on that note, talking about the economic aspect of it, how crucial do you think the role of IPEF is going to be? Because it's not just about the economic partnership of these four countries, but also a very, very clear indication for China, and this is something that has been very clearly established.
First of all, IPEN or IPEF, whatever you call it, goes beyond Quad. It is not a Quad-centered approach. It is Indo Pacific centered approach. Number two, even in Indo Pacific, it is not all inclusive. It includes certain countries which are part of the US network, and they include India, most of the ASEAN countries, Vietnam, South Korea, Japan, etc. So clearly the approach here in terms of IPEN or IPEF is building up an economic kind of a platform, a regional platform, which is actually a response to the Trans-Pacific TPP, etc., which the US has not become a partner as yet. And therefore, this thing, Indo-Pacific Economic Network, should be seen as a kind of challenge or option, alternative to what China does. And I would think including even RCEP. That's a bit of an overreach, but I think it is going to be in contest with RCEP
right,
also.
Sir.
Now,
Mr. Goel, just interrupting you, apologies for that, because we are getting the live pictures from Tokyo, and I just have to quickly describe those pictures for our viewers. We are looking at the Quad meeting with the first round of statements that has been made by the world leaders. In present, we are looking at pictures of the newly sworn-in Australian Prime Minister, US President Joe Biden, the Japanese Prime Minister, and also Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The opening statements that have just been made by these world leaders. We are expecting the other round of meetings that will shortly follow. Madhav can speak over this. Madhav, we are looking at bilaterals, in-person bilaterals that will be happening next. All right, we'll be just getting our line reconnected with Madhav, but this is the fourth Quad Leaders Summit that is now to focus on various initiatives that has been launched by the four-country grouping, which includes the United States, India, Japan, and Australia, and also to discuss the development in the Indo Pacific region. So, Mr. Goel, this is not a military alliance that we're looking at. This is, what do you believe, more like a strategic alliance of these four countries coming together with shared and similar interests, especially when it happens of the China's expansionism policy. How do you look at this alliance, sir?
I would really like to call it a security organization, security platform, where the four countries are looking at the different aspects of security.
We're driven to make the world around us better.
Australia, India, Japan, and the United States are betting on the next generation of leaders.
To strengthen our ties and our commitment to a future that leads in science and technology from societies that are open, inclusive, and free.
When we come together across nations to advance innovation and exchange cultural opportunities, we engineer unlimited possibilities.
それでは岸田内閣総理大臣よりご発言いただきます。Now the Prime Minister Kishida will deliver his statement. 総理お願いいたします。
本日、ここに、東京にて、バイデン大統領、そしてモディ首相、そしてアルバニージ首相を、お迎えし、日米豪印フェローシップを創設することを正式に宣言できますことを大変嬉しく思います。
I am delighted today to be here in Tokyo and officially declare the launch of the Quad Fellowship with President Biden, Prime Minister Modi, and Prime Minister Albanese.
豊かな社会の基盤は人間の英知です。4カ国の未来を担う若い学生や研究者の皆さんにこの魅力あふれるフェローシップにぜひ挑戦していただきたいと思っています。
Wisdom of humanity is the foundation of a prosperous and enlightening society. Allow me to call on young students and researchers who will carry forward our hope for the future of our four nations to apply for this challenging but truly fascinating fellowship program.
本フェローシップが4カ国をつなぐ架け橋となり、インド太平洋地域や世界の課題を解決し、そして成長に導く力となることを大いに期待しています。
Let me conclude by wishing that this fellowship will become a bridge that connects our four nations and that it will empower us to lead and to grow so that we can resolve many of the challenges of the Indo Pacific region and around the world.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.
総理ありがとうございました。では、本フェローシップの運営団体でありますシュミット財団のブレイバーマン CEO にも入りいただき、記念撮影を行いたいと思います。We would like to move on to the photo session. Let me ask Mr. Braverman to join the leaders. Mr. Braverman is the CEO of Schmidt Features, which administers the fellowship. 写真のカメラのお向きください。Please look at the photo. Photographers.
Mr. President, is the policy of strategic ambiguity for Taiwan dead? Can you explain? No. Mr. President, will you send troops to Taiwan if
So these are the live visuals from Tokyo. The four state heads there. In fact, before this as well, picture perfect and giving out a very clear message. And it seemed to be a lot about camaraderie as well, not just the Quad meeting, but also a personal equation that these leaders share with each other. Now, the launch of the Quad Fellowship as well, a joint statement that is going on from the Quad leaders.
Now the leaders will leave the venue. では首脳の皆様が退出いたします。Press people, please stay here.
Lieutenant General Kulkarni, sir, because we're staying with those live pictures that are coming in from Tokyo, but China has been so very closely monitoring. And the threat from China, do you believe, is both direct and indirect, because it is conventional and hybrid that will play out in the grey zone most of the time in order to also tackle such kind of threats? Does India need Quad all the more?
Definitely. China can't be trusted. The way China is going about is not necessarily conventional, as you rightly said. It's the hybrid mode. It's in all spheres. Look at the way the Chinese have gone about in just the ocean wealth being absolutely total loot of the ocean wealth. And if that is what carries on, we will have real difficulty. It can do what it wants to for its own interests and own economic interests at the cost of other countries. And therefore, China needs to be shown its place that, well, it's an international world. Each one of us have to live together, and that there should be a rule of law. You can't just carry on doing what you wish to do. And what is happening in Ukraine also we have to be careful of, because the way that the statement from the US president came that yes, militarily we will defend Taiwan, of course, and this thing came later that we are not going to intervene into Taiwan, but we give all support. That was adequate to convey to China that, look, you cannot do any unilateral action. And that was very, very important. And Chinese threat is in all spheres, as you rightly said, hybrid, be it cyber, be it space, be it economics, be it anything and everywhere, even in the ocean, the way it is going about. And therefore, China needs to be shown its place that, well, there is place for China, there's place for everybody else in this world. It just cannot be unilateral, it has to be multilateral, and everybody must survive and be happy together.
Absolutely. In fact, Srinjoy Chaudhary also joins us live on the broadcast. Srinjoy, with trade, all the countries need to not just protect each other, but also boost the economic ties. And that's what we are seeing here, some personal camaraderie on display as well.
The important thing is that all Quad countries are making it very clear
that the Quad is not a military alliance. While that is so, there will naturally be discussions about the Indo Pacific, which is a euphemism for China, or discussions about what is happening in Ukraine. All that will happen, but there are really three basic areas where the Quad will sit down and focus upon. One, on the COVID situation and ensuring that everybody gets a vaccine. Secondly, the production of new green technology to ensure that global warming is contained. And thirdly, a resurgence of the economy, world economy, particularly of the Indo Pacific, keeping in mind China's and so on. So these are really the areas where the Quad will focus on. And you hear that even in speeches, that these are the key basics which led to the Quad coming to.
Right.
As far as military strategic issues are concerned, we know that all four Quad countries participate in exercise Malabar, which originally started with India and the United States, but has now extended back now Australia.
So we are looking at a brief meeting there rather than a packed schedule for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as he will be now shortly heading back to India. But thanking all of our guests also joining us here on the broadcast for your expert point of view. Thank you very much for taking out your time. We head into a short break. The live updates from Tokyo will continue.